Welcome back to the Stick 'em Up podcast. Brundi, it has been a crazy week in the NHL. We have one of the biggest trades that I can honestly even remember happening, less alone in the middle of the season and not in the off season. We're definitely going to be talking about that as we go through this episode. But I think off the top here, we're going to talk about just a ton of signings and extensions that are happening all over the league. Do you have one of these guys that you want to start with? Do you have any of them that jump out to you as good signings or bad signings?
So quickly off the top, because I think this is an interesting discussion and kind of highlighting what a great time this is. Honestly, to be a hockey fan, obviously, but I think just in general, we had a great weekend over just in general, watching lots of good hockey games on the massive trade that we were talking about. But there was also some football games going on this weekend. Obviously, having the NFC and AFC championship games to go to the Super Bowl. We know that once again, couple years down from last couple years, we're getting the Kansas City Chiefs and the Philadelphia Eagles once again. We've talked a lot on here about how good Connor McDavid is and how he's already at a point now where maybe not everybody, but when you're talking to people about their Mount Rushmore of hockey players, right? Some people have McDavid on there, some people don't. There's no right or wrong answer, but the fact that McDavid at, what is he, 28?
27, I think.
27. The fact that McDavid at 27 is already in the conversation is insane. And you can
goofy.
You can talk about it in the NFL. With Patrick Mahomes. It's crazy that in this day and age we're even getting to witness it in the NBA with LeBron James. Just how much insane talent we have. We've talked in great lengths about the stuff Connor McDavid's done, and if you're a big NFL fan and you want to make the argument about the refs favoring the Chiefs, yeah, I'll hear you out on it all day long. I'm not gonna say you're wrong. But Patrick Mahomes, he's 29 years old. He's only been in the league as a starter for 7 years. So in those 7 years, he's been the MVP twice. He's been the Super Bowl MVP 3 times. He's a 6-time Pro Bowler, which is kind of like their all-star game that really doesn't matter much in the NFL. In 7 years, he's already won 3 Super Bowls.
That's
going
so
for
crazy.
Going for his 4th this year, which would be his 3rd in a row.
Yeah, they're going for the three-peat.
It's his 5th Super Bowl appearance in general. So in 7 years, 5 of those years, he's gone to the Super Bowl. And at 29 years old, he already has the 2nd most playoff wins all time by a quarterback. So, Patrick Mahomes at the age of 29, if you don't have him on your Mount Rushmore, I think that's kind of wild. I think at this point, in my opinion, the GOAT is still obviously Tom Brady. Definitely could change by the end of Mahomes' career the way it's going.
Well, especially if he has Brady's longevity or even half of it. If he keeps up what he's been doing until he's 34 even. On average, that means he's going to be what? Playoff MVP 2 more times, have 2 or 3 more rings. It's absolutely insane what he's done. And one thing I do want to highlight that I didn't actually know, I don't know a lot of his specific accolades, but you pointed out, was the fact that he's been league MVP only twice, Super Bowl MVP 3 times. You don't see that a lot in the NHL. There's very few guys that have more Conn Smythes than Hart trophies or Art Rosses, unless they're a guy who won a single Conn Smythe and none of the other ones. Very few guys have 2 Hart trophies and 3 or 4 Conn Smythes. That basically doesn't happen. So
I will say,
even with Gretzky, Gretzky's got how many Harts and stuff, but how many Conn Smythes does he have? I think it's 1 or 2.
Yeah, I will say though, more often than not, with the Super Bowl, it's someone's ringing my doorbell. More often than not, it's usually the quarterback will win the Super Bowl MVP. But still, nonetheless, to have 3 already, I agree with you, is quite insane. Definitely dive into latest news around the league. We got a lot here, a lot of hockey talk now. Starting off the rip, we'll start off with a little bit of a smaller trade today, but can kind of be a nice segue into a lot of the signings that have happened over the last couple of days. The New York Islanders acquired defenseman Scott Perunovich from the St. Louis Blues in exchange for a conditional 5th-round pick in 2026. Perunovich, I believe, is 26 years old at this point now, and really hasn't gotten a whole lot of looks in the NHL yet from the Blues. So, St. Louis gets a draft pick back in return, and the Islanders can bring in a defenseman where,
they
they're
need it.
They're really in need of defensemen in general right now. So I like the deal for both sides. Blues really didn't need Perunovich, and the Islanders desperately did. So
yeah, it's it's a 5th-round pick. It's conditional, so I don't know. Maybe it goes to next year or goes up to a 4th if something happens. But at the end of the day, it's a later pick, and they weren't using Perunovich, so might as well get something, get an extra pick, see if you can take a flyer on a guy. But I definitely like it for the Islanders because if anything, they just need guys who are even relatively close to NHL caliber defensemen right now. They've got so many injuries on the back end that they'll take any defenseman that could be playing NHL minutes for a 5th.
Yeah. Like just to highlight how crazy the blue line is looking for the Islanders, which it will lead us right into the next player we're about to talk about. They went on a pretty decent stretch where they had Adam Pelech, Alexander Romanov, and Mike Riley all out injured, which is all 3 of their left-handed defensemen. Adam Pelech comes back, Romanov comes back. Mike Riley hasn't come back yet. He's got a lot of other serious issues, but they've had a great guy in Isaiah George who has been able to come up and slide in, and he's looked great. So they're not too stressed there. But as soon as the left side gets healthy, Noah Dobson now goes down injured. I think he's out 6 to 8 weeks, they were saying. So he's out a decent bit of time. And then just over this past weekend in back-to-back days, Scott Mayfield and Ryan Pulock both go down with injuries. Timeline's still undetermined on them, but now their entire right side is now injured. Like they just can't catch a break. They really can't, and they've had stretches where Sorokin was injured, Varlamov came in, looked great, then Varlamov goes down injured. So they bring up Marcus Hoberg. He looked good. Now he's gone down injured. Thankfully, they have Sorokin back. It's just going round and round with the injuries they're having to deal with.
Yeah, like we just every year we see it. At least one team.
There's always one team.
Often multiple teams. Like, this year we've already had the Islanders are dealing with it like crazy. The Avalanche looked like they just couldn't handle the sheer number of injuries they had early on. Like they at one point, like their IR looked longer than their actual roster. Like, so, it's hopefully those are the only 2 teams that have to deal with it this bad this year, but you never know. It takes one game for a bunch of guys to just drop like flies.
Yeah, that's really what it is. But Perunovich was not the only defenseman they brought into the mix. This is a player we talked about the other week after kind of getting kicked. Choosing to leave, but basically kind of got kicked off his team in the KHL. Tony Deangelo signing a 1-year deal with the Islanders to join the team for the remainder of the season, or potentially about a month until he gets dealt, if he does get moved, if the Islanders become sellers. But bringing in Tony Deangelo to kind of bring in a little bit of offensive juice to their blue line. Not really a player that will help them on the defensive side. He's mostly there to, I think, basically kind of run the power play with Dobson injured, especially now that Dobson and Ryan Pulock are both out injured. And That's really kind of what he's there to do. Bring some offense and um, probably be a -2 almost every night.
Yeah, and I literally hadn't thought of this until you were just talking about it now. Um, but this makes it a chaotic situation, a potential outcome of that even more insane. The idea of JT Miller going to the Islanders, where he's already had issues with Horvat, and he's such a strong personality in the locker room. And now he would be going there, sharing the locker room with Tony Deangelo, who has been kicked off at least 3 or 4 teams in the NHL, been traded, bought out, sold around specifically because of his locker room etiquette. Uh, that that would just be a wild news week.
It,
Like,
it would either go really good or it'd go really bad. I don't think there would be an in between.
yeah, and something tells me it
Having
wouldn't
that.
go great for him. But you know what? We've seen weirder things happen. I
It's
think.
and I mean with this signing, like, I mean I get it. Like, I've seen lots of people in general, lots of Islanders fans. I've actually seen quite a few Islanders fans that are happy with this signing. Um, Obviously, the large majority of people are kind of against it, and I mean, I get it. If you don't like
Yeah.
Deangelo, you don't like the stuff he's done. I get it. I'm personally, and maybe it's different for people down in the States. Like, I totally get it, but a big part of the reason people don't like him is his political beliefs. I'm always just a person that it's just the hockey player and the man, not necessarily personal beliefs. I think as long as you just don't spew about it, just keep it to yourself and just focus on your job. D'Angelo is one of the players that obviously has had a tough time doing that.
Yeah.
But the Islanders needed a defenseman. Like, their blue line was injured. D'Angelo, if he's not doing dumb shit, he's an effective player to have. He's in most cases going to help you more than hurt you. And again, Downers needed a defenseman. It's better than going out and already being at a disadvantage, trying to make a trade because teams know you're hurting. If you can get a good defenseman for dirt cheap, it's only for probably a couple of months. Like, I don't think he'll be a long-term guy there. I think it's kind of just, hey, come ride out the rest of the season. We've got so many guys injured, and then part ways and wish you luck. So
Yeah.
I mean, I get it. If I was an Islanders fan, I understand it because you're trying to stay in the playoff race, and
I get it
you're
from
not
the
doing
GM
that by
standpoint.
having half an AHL team on your blue line for what's probably would look like for at least 6 weeks. I know Dobson's out that long.
Yeah.
The
It just
way
feels like
Mayfield
they
and
could
Ryan
have
Pulock went down, I think
you
they're
could
going to
have
be
found
out.
defensemen, Like they just got
But again, you'd have
Perunovic
to
for a
trade.
5th.
But he's basically been an AHL guy. There's no guarantee that he's gonna be a mainstay. Like, I like the move they made. Actually, I think it was with St. Louis, literally just last season, grabbing Robert Bortuzzo. I thought that was a great pickup for them, and I thought Robert Bortuzzo fit in perfectly. But so
It just
I mean,
it
I
feels
like
like
the
it
addition of
risks more.
Perunovic,
It
but
feels like it risks more than their current defensive
but where they're at
position.
now, I literally don't think it does. If they were in the if they were in
You
a
just don't want to
playoff
piss
spot,
off the
maybe.
locker
But
room for the future. I'm not talking about
I
like how
don't
they
think
do
it
this
will,
season.
though. I don't think it will.
We
Look at
don't
all the other
know,
teams
but
D'Angelo's
like
been on. The locker room hasn't been in shambles. Flyers
no.
locker room seems to be almost the best it's been in years. Carolina's completely fine. Tampa Bay's fine.
Yeah,
Where else
but
was he?
it's it still risks it, the same way that,
It does,
bringing in a
but
guy like Miller does, but it feels a lot worse with D'Angelo. Like, they just signed Duclair, man.
I feel like
Like,
it sends an even worse message to the team when guys go
because
down injured, and it's like, all right, well, try and power through it. Like, you gotta. I mean, some of the guys they've called up from the AHL have been, and again, the best guys that they could have called up from the AHL. It's been bad.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
thankfully, they have a
No,
young guy
I'm
in
definitely
Isaiah
not
George
saying they
who
should
can
sit
make
on
the
their
jump.
hands. They should
But the
absolutely
thing
do something.
is if you can take signing a good player, I'm not talking about the person, I'm talking about the player, for dirt cheap for the remainder of this season, you do that all day over going out and having to give up more picks and prospects to bring in
I
other
I
guys.
guess I wonder how many of the guys it really rubs the wrong way because
From
like
what
he
it sounds like
Tony
the Islanders are
Deangelo.
excited to have him, though, from what the players have
Well,
been saying.
because they have to say that, right? But like
I don't
Tony Tony
I don't think you
Deangelo
don't have
is
to.
a Tony Deangelo is a Republican. I'll give you a hint. He's far from the only Republican in the NHL, less alone major
But that's
sports.
the thing, like,
But that's
it's
not what it's about. It's the fact that he's one of the most racist guys to play hockey in a decade in the NHL. Like it's and that just I that's just so on another level. Like there's so many guys that have differing political views that we're here playing hockey. We don't care. But that's one thing it's come up in. There's a reason that he's good, but he's been on like what is this, his seventh team? Something like that. Like it just yeah, it just feels like you're risking the locker room chemistry for a guy that I don't see as a massive needle mover. He's gonna put up a couple points. He's gonna have you probably let in a few more goals. It'll help. How much will it help? You know, JT Miller, he's insane. He might mess with the locker room a bit. That's worth the risk. That is absolutely worth the risk. This guy doesn't seem good enough to be worth risking anything, in my mind.
Again, like, yes, there's the race side, but we do got to remember again, and we've talked about this before with other players. Uh, did D'Angelo had come out and said, he had gone to counseling for that issue and kind of dealt with it, and even to go further, that I don't know I don't know if they ever even said the exact player on this team that he had an issue with. But it's been noted that like they're still friends and they've moved past it. And we've talked about other players that have done like bad stuff before. Maybe not to this level, but there is some guys we've talked about that have been on a completely
Yeah,
higher level than this. And we've said it though. We said if you put in the work and you know you do what you got to do and you come out better on the other side. I mean,
it just happens so many times that you get
but
a
there
couple
hasn't been an
chances,
issue
but
since that one, is what I'm saying though.
he just got kicked off a KHL team,
Well,
man. He
but we
was
don't
known
know
at
that for sure. We kind of
well,
joke about it,
well,
but
well, we don't know for sure, but over half the team came out and said, "Yeah, no, his nickname was Mister Fuck You in the locker room because that's all they ever heard from him." Like it,
well, shit,
like
I played hockey. I've said "fuck you" a million times.
no, yeah, but they didn't sound like they were saying it very endearingly.
I,
Like
I get the controversy of it, but I think it sends a worse message to the team if you kind of just roll over and say the injuries got to us.
no, but you
We're
can
we're
you
kind
can
of
make
just
trades.
packing.
You can make
But
trades.
but
You're a
again,
GM. Do your job.
but again, that's not a good look if you're the Islanders and you're shelling out picks and prospects when you're 11 points out of a playoff spot, right? Like that just look. I mean, don't get me wrong.
No,
Lou Lamoriello is definitely
yeah.
past his prime, and I think we're all collectively kind of just waiting for when does he eventually just retire and the Islanders can
Yeah, because apparently
move in a different
the
direction.
owner just like won't fire him. So
Yeah,
he's just gonna have to
It-
wait it
it's
out and see till he's
it's
done. But
literally it's literally when Lou Lamoriello decides to. So I get the controversy of it, but I mean I understand it. I do. He's a hell of a player, and if he can help the Islanders get some extra points and try and get back into the playoff hunt. I don't know about fans in general, but Islanders fans, you know what? I don't think they're going to care if he gets them into the playoffs. That's really kind of what you're hoping for. And if he puts up some points and you can flip them at the deadline to a desperate team, they might just take that approach too.
yeah, yeah, it definitely could happen.
Again, not
We'll have
trying to
to watch and
justify
see.
it, but for people to say, the Islanders are a scummy team now and whatnot, I think that's a bit
It,
insane
I
because
mean, so it's made the decision's
there's
made by
numerous
one man,
teams
right?
Exactly.
It's pretty tough to be like, oh, the Islanders org is all fucked up. Like, no,
Exactly.
if you really disagree with that, it's Lamoriello. Like, it's the GM goes and signs him. It's not. This is they didn't get a board meeting together to do this. They didn't ask all the players. Like, yeah. So
we'll keep an eye on Deangelo and see how that goes if he makes it to the end of the year and kind of what that whole situation goes on with, because I'm sure there's gonna be lots of eyeballs on him and the team now because of this.
But yeah, it would be crazy to see, them bring him in and then they bring in Miller, who, has had his issues in the past with Horvat. Like, it would just
I've heard that they're out on Miller
thing
now.
to see.
I've heard that they're out on Miller.
I wonder if
they're still in on
price.
Pettersson, but
oh, interesting.
But they're out on. At least from what I've heard, they're not really checking in on Miller and the price anymore.
Well,
which
we'll have to keep
probably good idea. Probably for the best.
Yeah. But we do have a few other signings, extensions, and the like. One of them, John Klingberg, signed a 1-year deal with the Edmonton Oilers. So did he play last year? Because he hasn't played this year. He's been a free agent.
He only played, I think, 8 games last year, I believe.
Yeah, it was majority in the AHL, and I think he was injured for a little bit as well. I'm not too sure, but
he played 7. Oh, geez, he played 15 games.
I'm seeing.
Yeah, he only played 14 with Toronto last year.
Yeah.
The year before is when he split time with Anaheim and Minnesota. Nobody's fumbled the bag harder than this guy, I will say.
Dude, that's so brutal. Like, man.
It's one of those cases where
it's rough.
Tough to bet on yourself. And then to bet on yourself and go sign with the worst team in the league at the time. Like, you weren't doing yourself any favors.
I mean, no, but he was splitting time at that point with Heiskanen. Like, if he could go be the guy in Anaheim, in his mind, he's thinking I could set a career high and put up, 80 points as a defenseman. But yeah, he had that infamously. He had an 8x8 offered to him in Dallas, $64 million. I think his next contract, he signed the 1-year prove it, which was with the Ducks. And I mean,
it was a 1 year. It was 1 year, $8 million deal. So he did get $8 million that year.
So he didn't lose out on money that year. And then,
it was actually have a good year.
It was actually 1 year, $7 million.
7. Okay.
There.
7. Yeah.
And then after that, he signed a 1 year, again, prove it deal with Brad Treliving and the Toronto Maple Leafs, $4.1 million. And this is his most current contract now at 1.35. That's rough.
And I think it's $750,000 guaranteed, and I think the rest is in performance bonuses or something, if I'm not mistaken. I believe I was reading something. There's some kind of bonuses.
It looks like there's no performance bonuses, but he got a $350,000 signing bonus on top of his base salary of $1 million.
So okay, so yes, that's what it would be then.
I wonder if there were a couple teams kicking tires then. They must have.
Maybe I'm curious to see, because I don't think he's suited up for a game yet with the Edmonton Oilers. Yeah, he hasn't played yet. I
get the idea.
I get the idea, but at the same time, it's if you already have Evan Bouchard, that's really tough to have both of them in your lineup.
It's tough to have an offensive defenseman. Yeah, it's tough to have an offensive defenseman play bottom pair minutes. Because those are the guys you need to be good defensively. We see it all the time with these guys who are really good offensively in the AHL, and they get brought up, and then they can't crack a team's top 6, so they play bottom 6 forward minutes, but that's not where they're supposed to score. They need to play defense, so then they get sent back to the AHL, and he's kind of the defensive side of that, because a defenseman version, because I guess we'll see. I mean, who knows? Maybe he puts up half a point per game for the rest of the season, and if he can even play fine defensively, then it'll be worth it.
Evan Bouchard is obviously an offensive defenseman, right? One of the better ones in the league. He's not abysmal defensively, but he is definitely in the bottom half of defense in the league when it comes to defensive play.
Below average,
Klingberg he's a strict offensive defenseman, like one of not maybe not the worst, but one of I think the worst defense in the league when it comes to like playing a solid defensive game. So if you're bringing him in, like you gotta, like it would suck to do because it's such a good pairing, but like fuck, if you put Klingberg in, you might almost have to stick Ekholm beside him, run a little Swedish combination there, and
how annoying would that be for Ekholm?
Try to find someone to play with Bouchard, because you need a solid guy, I think, especially we don't know where Klingberg's at necessarily now because it's been a bit, but I do believe that you are going to have a solid guy on the left side to help him out. I really do think so.
How annoying
like
is
you
that
said,
for
if he can come in and put up some points.
If he, has to go from covering for Bouchard's mistakes to now have to cover for John
Yeah,
Klingberg.
But he had to have known what he was getting into with Edmonton. Like that's kind of their thing, right? Is they've never really had the strongest blue line, so a guy like Ekholm kind of had to be like, yeah, this is what I'm gonna have to do.
I guess, but at least with Bouchard, you're doing it on the first pairing, right?
Yeah, that is true. But if they're winning games, he's probably all good with it. But yeah, it's probably gotta be a little bit tough to kind of watch your partners kind of screw you over a fair bit when they're jumping up into the rush. So, but hey, you know what? It definitely could be a good signing for Edmonton, and Klingberg could, I think, definitely help out their second power play. So, if you rarely play him 5-on-5, but when you need him out there on the second power play, I think he definitely could make some magic happen with some of the guys that they got there.
Yeah, 100%. And there's a reason he got that signing bonus. Like there were other teams in on picking him up. So
yeah,
and
you got him for cheap. So
true.
You didn't have to pay a lot.
His cap hit is a little bit higher than the money he's making. His cap hit is 1.755. Just because he signed partway through the season, and I guess it goes based on how many games you get. So like he's going to be making that amount, but since it goes, you get paid per game you play, he's getting a higher percentage of the money per game since they've already played like 45, 50 games. Mm-hmm. So, whatever that math worked out to, it's about 175. But
okay.
I mean, relatively cheap, 2% of the cap. So
yeah,
it's not breaking the bank, and for the 1 year.
Yeah. We got two more signings here. This one will probably go through pretty quick. The New York Rangers signing defenseman Will Borgen, who they acquired from the Seattle Kraken in the Capo Caco trade. 5-year extension at $4.1 million per year. That's great for Borgen that he managed to pull that off.
I actually want to know who his agent is, and I want to know if it's the same agent that Barclay Goodrow had, who fleeced the Oilers last time. Because that's
the Rangers, you mean?
Yeah, he fleeced the Rangers because that's just absolutely crazy. Like he's good. I liked Will Borgen coming back in the Kako trade more than most people seem to. I think he's a good player, but 4.1, I don't know if he's quite proven that. And for 6 years, because it kicks in after this year ends, they're already kind of in a tough cap spot with a couple of guys. So risking that happening again is
the Rangers just never learn.
Confusing. It's very confusing.
The Rangers just they do not learn. You finally got out from Jacob Trouba's deal, and then you go and you put $4.1 million into a third pairing defenseman for them. Like, you're trying to win a cup now, and you just constantly are like, let's just give up bad contract after bad contract, and I mean, okay, like if that's the way they want to, I don't understand what the Rangers are cooking up right now. I don't think many people do, and makes you think like someone like Keandre Miller's probably out the door
Yeah, like they gave him like
after
3 mil.
that.
They gave him like 3 mil less than they gave Lafreniere for 7 seasons. Like it just doesn't seem to add up. It just seems very
Yeah.
strange. But like, and it's too bad. I don't like talking about him that way because I really actually do like Borgen's game. I think he's a good player. It's just at that price point, like,
And it's
he's
unfortunate for him,
it's like
right?
it's
Like
like
it's
Huberdeau in Calgary. Like, he's good. This year he's had a bit of a comeback. He's great, but y- when you're talking about what helps your team win, I mean that cap space is pretty important, and he takes up more
yeah.
than his share.
And that's the thing that sucks, right? Like it seems like there's a lot of players with the Rangers that this happens to. They get paid. Some guys maybe overpaid right at the beginning, kind of like this, or the Barclay Goodrow run. But then guys like Zibanejad, who have been nothing but great for them for years, having a bit of a down year, and now the fan base is turning on him because of what he's making.
Yeah.
And so I feel bad for Borg, because I agree with you. I think he's a solid defenseman. I think he can play serviceable minutes, but you know, to be getting paid this much, I do believe it is an overpay, and I think he's going to be hearing about it now for the next 5 years with the Rangers. Actually, probably 2, because they'll find a way to have someone pay to take him off their hands.
You know what? That's actually a really good thing to bring up. Let's take a look. Does it have any trade protection? Because that's a pretty important piece of info, especially when you're talking about the Rangers, because they have a history of doing that. He has absolutely no trade protection, no clauses, nothing.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So
So if they want to get rid of him, if they can find someone to take him, they'll probably take the first chance they get in a couple of years, I bet.
But for now, they're betting on him because that clearly means they're moving out other defensemen, Lindgren
Yeah.
being a UFA. Keandre Miller's an RFA, so I don't know about that, but, Vakanainen, Zach Jones, they're all expiring this season.
Yeah. So they're going to have to make some moves at some point here.
Yeah. Lindgren is a really good playoff defenseman.
Yeah.
If they move him out, I think that's going to hurt him in the playoffs more than they realize. So I'm interested to see what happens with him and what team picks him up, because he screams one of those like depth players on a Stanley Cup winning team.
Yeah. As long as he can stay healthy.
Yeah.
As long as he stays healthy. But Brian Lindgren of the New York Rangers does have a brother, Charlie Lindgren, on the Washington Capitals. And his goaltender partner, Logan Thompson, he got a nice little contract today, signing an extension with the Washington Capitals, 6 years at $5.850 million.
It's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money, but the way he's playing this year, it's looking like a steal of a contract. That's looking like a really nice deal for the Capitals. If Logan Thompson even just continues the way he's been playing this year for the next couple of years, it looks like such a great deal.
Yeah. I guess, what do you think this means for Charlie Lindgren? He is a UFA at the end of this year. He's making $1.1 million. That's pretty damn cheap for a goalie who I think he obviously didn't get a ton, but I think he got a handful of Hart votes last season based on how much he helped the Washington Capitals stay out of the basement.
I mean, Charlie Lindgren obviously did he had a terrific, like a great season last year. He was a big part of why Washington even made the playoffs where they were. This year has really kind of taken a little bit of a step back. Logan Thompson has a 2.09 goals against. Charlie Lindgren has a 2.46. So still 2.46 is still very solid. Logan Thompson has a 0.925 save percentage. Charlie Lindgren has a 0.906. Logan Thompson having 2 shutouts. Charlie Lindgren 1. The biggest difference is what they're producing in terms of points for the team. Logan Thompson having a record of 22, 2, and 3. Charlie Lindgren having a record of 11, 9, and 2. So they're basically about 500 when Lindgren's in the net. They're winning way more than they're losing with Logan Thompson in net. So they're clearly making it known that Logan Thompson is their guy moving forward, I think.
Oh, yeah, with this extension, absolutely. But, you especially, I know you love saying that, wins are a team sport, and, the stats for a goalie is the save percentage.
Totally are.
And obviously, Logan Thompson has been better this season by far, but a 906 on a goalie who's played 23 games, 23 is still more than most backups have played at this point. And a 906 save percentage is pretty damn good. And
it's definitely not to say like Lindgren's bad by means. I'm still a big fan of him. It's just the Logan like they were kind of even with each other for the first, month or two of the season. But Logan Thompson has really kind of set himself on a higher level.
And he's 4 years younger. Like it makes so much sense to go with him. I'm just wondering,
like Charlie Lindgren's,
are they going to cash in?
Well, and that's what I'm thinking. Like Charlie Lindgren's on a cheap contract now. It is the final year. He is 31. Like, again, I love Charlie Lindgren. I loved what he did for Washington last year, but
he's played quite a few games. But
maybe try to, if someone's willing to pay a bit for him, and if there's a team that goalie goes down injured, or they're desperate for a good backup, like looking at an Edmonton, maybe I don't know how much you could get for Charlie Lindgren, but again, at 31, he's going to be turned 32 next year. If Logan Thompson's your guy, I don't hate the idea of trying to cash in and get something for Lindgren.
I don't think they would be extending him if they did keep him. The thing is, they're on track to win the President's Trophy. So I don't know if you want to make a move on a position that only has two guys, but if you think you have a guy in the minors who could be your backup, or another guy you could get for cheap and move Lindgren out and get something good, because honestly, you said Edmonton, and Edmonton notably has had goaltending issues for years, and Stuart Skinner's been decent this year, but I'm sure Charlie Lindgren, at the very least in a tandem with him, would ease the mind of a lot of Oilers fans.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm interested to see if he moves and where he goes if he does, but I think it would be almost foolish to not try and capitalize on, you got Logan Thompson locked in, now get something of value for Lindgren while he's on his way out, because
that's what I think. Yeah, I'm with you.
I don't know what he signs for after this year, but I imagine it's more than they want for the backup in Washington, because I don't know if he's exactly a starter. He's proven he can be at times, but
the issue is he hits 31, which is a big thing. And even if he can be a starter, I don't think there's many teams that are going to commit a decent amount of money long term for a guy like
probably not super long term, but we're not seeing too many teams go 6, 7, 8 years with a lot of goalies as often. It's a lot more 3 years or less. I think a lot of GMs are very gun shy about goalies, and if you could get him in free agency at 2 years for $4 million, that's not terrible.
I don't think,
a 911, a 906. But
I think he would take a 2 years, 2.5 to 3 million.
Oh, maybe, but if there's a team desperate enough, he's put up very solid numbers, so we'll have to wait and see. He currently has a 906, as we said. Stuart Skinner has a 902 on the year. Lindgren's played better, and you could argue he's in front of a better team right now.
Better defensive team. You know what? I mean, they're number one in the league. So just better team. Yeah.
But you know what? Maybe all Skinner needs to be great, because we've seen the flashes of it. Maybe he just needs to be in a tandem. Stuart Skinner, Lindgren, split the starts. If one of them really grabs the reins, they're your playoff guy. I don't think it would cost a ton from the Capitals. So
I don't think so.
I wouldn't mind somebody taking a flyer on him and seeing what they can do.
And I think there would be a team. I think there's multiple teams out there that I think the Winnipeg Jets is a team that I think could maybe use a someone else in there instead of Eric Comrie. I think Eric Comrie's still good, but it has struggled at times this year, and
It doesn't
maybe
even
just
feel
having
like
something a
he
little
has,
more
just the
secure.
team around him. His stats are good, but he just like doesn't win. Like it just feels like the Jets' only bad games are saved for when Hellebuck's not there. It's crazy. His stats are weird to say the
Mhm.
least. But
But I mean, hey, if you bring Lindgren, maybe he steals you a game or two, right? Like
yeah,
that's kind of a big thing with Logan Thompson is not only is he good, there's quite a few examples where he steals a game for Washington where they've been badly outplayed. Go look at I think it was last week when they played the Oilers. Like he stole that game alone for Washington there. So, but yeah,
yeah.
I'm with you. I think if you get a decent offer for Charlie Lindgren, I think you probably pull the trigger and get
As
some
long
back.
as
And
they
hey, if you
as long
don't, you
as they
hold
think they
on
have
to
a
him.
decent goalie,
Just hold
like
on to him as a
backup.
backup for a playoff run, and that's fine too, right? Like,
Yeah. But moving on, I guess we should also probably talk about, since he's the guy with the extension. What do you like on? Do you like? Do you dislike? What's your overall thoughts on this extension? Like,
I as of right now, I mean, if this is the Logan Thompson that I already thought he was a great goaltender in um in Vegas.
Vegas.
So when I saw Washington got him for a third, I was like, that's a great move for Washington. And if this is him, I think like he's a good goalie. I think most years probably doesn't have the insane win to loss ratio, but he's still going to be a great goalie for them. He's young. This deal, 6 years is perfect, and you're not paying. You're paying him if you're paying your starting goalie under 6 mil. That's I really like that, especially when the cap
Yeah,
is only going up. That just gives you
that's true.
more room to, if you want. Now you could bring in a $2.5 million backup if you need, and if you get a good backup on a cheap deal, that's just more money you can put towards your forwards, your defensemen. Like you've got Chikrin, who's been great. You're gonna have to give him an extension here. I think it's a great deal.
Yeah,
In terms of what it's looking like right now, I like it a lot. For good on Thompson for getting paid a good chunk of change. He wouldn't have gotten anywhere near this if he stayed in Vegas. He went out and really kind of secured this contract by going out and just playing lights out every night. Really,
yeah, and he's definitely going to be in the conversation for starting goalie next time. Best on best tournament involving Canada comes around,
yeah.
because
I'm already shocked
there's a
he's not on Canada's
yeah, there's
for
a
the Four
lot of
Nations in a couple
people
weeks here, but
don't like. Obviously, none of us knew who the goalies really should be for Canada back when they made the choices, because it was really slim pickings. But since then, it's been pretty clear that they, between Logan Thompson and Mackenzie Blackwood, they made the wrong choices.
yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. Having those two sitting at home is not it's probably not going to be a good look for him. Still have high hopes for Team Canada, but yeah, I think you did you definitely should have had at least Logan Thompson or Mackenzie Blackwood there. But
Yeah.
yeah, I love this deal for Thompson. I love it for the Caps, and now they can focus on a big playoff run here.
One guy who is definitely appears to be focusing on a long playoff run, Alex Pietrangelo has withdrawn from the Four Nations tournament due to injury. He withdrew due to injury yesterday, and then that night he played with Vegas in an NHL game. He has said he's not going to be missing any regular season games either, but he is still out of that tournament due to injury, which is very interesting. And I would love to hear your thoughts.
I mean, straight up, based on what it sounds like, this doesn't even hurt Team Canada, in my opinion. Don't get me wrong, Petrangelo is a great player, but it sounds like the prime candidates to uh, replace him on the team is Drew Doughty or Mackenzie Weegar.
Love
So
both of those.
it
Those
it
are
it,
two
it
of the
doesn't
best guys
hurt.
for the job.
It does not hurt Team Canada. Um, yeah, I don't know. I mean, sure. Petrangelo doesn't want to play in a best on best. That's his decision. I'm not going to fault him for that. it is like we mentioned before we start recording. You mentioned that he won't be penalized at all for missing this. It's not the same as the All-Star game,
where you get a one game suspension for not showing up. We've seen Ovechkin just absolutely tank that and say, "Yep, I'll see you at the next game." In the
Yeah,
past, and yeah, I mean, so I don't
it's a
think
bit weird.
I've seen
You
some
get the
people.
opportunity to play best on best. He would get to go play with a couple teammates and Theodore and Hill, and but you know what? If he wants to take couple extra days off to rest up a bit, he's more than all the power to him.
That's pretty much how I'm looking at it. Like I'm surprised that he would, because you never see this in the NHL. Like that we're
Mhm.
always starving for this best on best in any form that we can get it, and to get picked and then decide not to go, like it is just not something you see very often. And there's a
Well,
lot of people
especially
being
with
like, it's
Pietrangelo,
disrespectful to
though.
Canada and all that. And it's like, I
Yeah,
don't
see,
know about
I don't view it
I
that way.
yeah, I think that's definitely putting it on a bit heavy, but uh I was surprised that he didn't want to go, but I mean, dude's been around the freaking block a couple of times. Like I think he's already got a gold medal in the Olympics with Canada. He's got 2 cup rings at this point. Like I don't doubt that he has a ton of lingering injuries that, you know what, that week and a half there in February, it's probably going to be real nice for him to rest up. So, uh yeah, I'm more just shocked than anything that, this is really not something you see. And if you did, you'd expect it to be from a guy that, is known for being a little more apathetic towards these sort of things, but I've never really pegged Petrangelo as a guy who I figured he'd be a wouldn't miss it for the world type of guy. But
Well, and it's
at the
you
same
know what?
time, if if you look like you have a good shot for the cup this year, all the other guys that are gunning for the cup, a lot of those best players, they're all going to be playing these extra games, not getting that time to rest up, and it could put you ahead.
It definitely good. It's kind of weird with Petrangelo because when you kind of think about this was probably his last to go to um, represent Canada. I feel like.
Most likely, I think.
Again, I still think he's a solid player, but I feel like a year from now, this time when we're kind of coming up on the Olympics, I don't know if he's on the team, and
I
especially
I
after
don't think
withdrawing
we
here, I
had him on
wonder if
ours.
maybe that kind of knocks him down a peg. Like if you're debating between,
Oh, a hundred
player A and
percent.
Petrangelo, and you're like, well, Petrangelo's bailed on us once before. Let's maybe go with this
Yeah.
other guy and hell, maybe Mackenzie Weegar even comes in, or Drew Doughty has a terrific, plays great for Canada here, and the point where you're like, all right, well, we're already putting this guy ahead of Petrangelo next, like whenever we're
Yeah.
choosing for the Olympic roster. So
I
I'm not
think
saying
it was
it's
a
guaranteed,
toss up.
but I think he's
I think
probably yeah.
Yeah. I think it would have been a toss up if he gets on the team. I think there's no shot he makes it now unless he puts up a really good playoffs or regular season next year. He's not getting picked again for Team Canada.
Mm.
We've seen how vain the guys at the top can be about this stuff. Like, hell, even with the juniors, they just refuse to play the better young players because they want grit and stuff, right? Like
Yeah.
they are not above doing that. If Kale McCarr did this, they'd probably still pick him. But Petrangelo was already a borderline guy just because of the talent back there, his age, all that. I I
And
could not see them
I'm not
bringing him
saying
in
it's
again.
true, but there's also a chance that he maybe only got picked because they had the opportunity to just put him with Shea Theodore,
Yeah,
who have been a very good pair.
that's why I picked him for my when we did the mock teams and tried to guess
Yeah.
who was going to be on the teams. That's why I had him, because I had Devon Taves as well for the same reason, playing with McCarr. Like
Mhm.
they love those guys who know how to play already. So it it is interesting, and it is also interesting that he would have got to play with his buddies there. So
Yeah,
I
right?
don't doubt that he's maybe feeling the injuries a little bit more. This one not being the Olympics and just being the just being the Four Nations thing, because we don't there's not really a precedent for it yet. Not to mention
Mhm.
it is multiple games. It's
Yeah.
it's not the all-star thing where it's,
Four
one
games,
day.
max if you make it to the finals.
Yeah. So, guys are going to tire themselves out playing those games because the ones that show up, they're going hard on it, and that's just 4 extra games of hockey when you would have gotten the last break before playoffs. Like, I see his
Mhm.
reasoning, but I've seen some people being like, he's a traitor to the country. And it's like, okay, cool your jets, man. It's the 4 nations face off. Like, hell, even if he did this for the Olympics, like, it would be a calm down moment. Like, if you're so passionate about it, you go do it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's Petrangelo's decision. I respect it. He's putting his NHL team first and going on a cup run. I respect that, and again, I think there will be consequences coming out of it that he's probably not playing the Olympics next year. But again, like that was his decision, and I'm
Yeah,
not gonna
and
not
he
gonna
knows
dog
that.
on a guy for doing that. So
Yeah. I saw a few people being like, does he realize this means he probably won't go to the Olympics? Yeah, he probably does realize it. I doubt he did this on a whim. He didn't wake up one morning and go, I don't feel like it in a week from now. No, he thought it through. He probably talked to his agent, probably talked to the GM and made the decision, right? So
yeah. Yeah, we're always talking about how the Department of Player Safety needs to do a better job protecting their players. We can't dog on a player when they go out of their way to take care of themselves and protect themselves. Like,
yeah, they're not getting paid to play in that tournament. Like,
yeah,
there's a
yeah,
lot of glory to be
also that.
had, but that doesn't sign you checks.
Yeah. Last bit of news, quickly with the kind of still talking about the 4 nations before we get into the monster trade that went down.
The
It has
trade of
been
2025 already.
confirmed that the NHL has notified the IIHF that, because this is, like we've talked about before, this is kind of to kickstart the NHL bringing back the World Cup of Hockey, which sounds like they're targeting for 2028, which is perfect because then it's every 4 years, and it's kind of offset from the Winter Olympics. So every 2 years we're getting a best on best. The NHL notified the IIHF that they will be moving forward with the World Cup of Hockey without the IIHF. So the next World Cup of Hockey that we're getting, much like the 4 nations here, will be strictly put on and done by the NHL, which means we're probably only going to get NHL players for it. But it does mean that we can have
without IIHF interference.
Have Russia in it. I'm assuming the NHL will allow them to take part in it. So,
well, you know what? I would expect that, but at the same time, Russia's not in the 4 nations face-off. But who knows what's going on in 2028 either.
But again, if you bring the thing was, I think the reason Russia kind of got pushed out is because they're like, well, they're already kind of excluded right now, and you can't really do this tournament with 5. So
I think if they did it with 4,
the casualty to just get the boot.
I think it was just easier to choose them and not include them right now because they already have the other 4 that are good. But I do think Russia is a clear third best.
Oh, don't get me wrong.
They're in the tournament.
I totally agree, but
okay.
There was just kind of the situations
Yeah.
already in play that made it easy to just leave them out, as opposed to having to choose between. It probably would have been Finland, but it was just easier to choose Russia right now. And
I'm still surprised they didn't just do a Europe East, Europe West, or a something like that. Do a Scandinavia and then a rest of the world. Like, but
I mean, I guess, but I like having the actual countries.
Yeah,
I get in the World Cup though doing
it's
it.
just
because,
weird with all the. There's so many insane players not playing. Pasternak, Draisaitl, they're all just not showing up.
Yeah,
but either way, it makes sense, and it will be nice that they're doing it without the IIHF because the IIHF ran some things good and some things very bad. One thing I genuinely do not know, and you might know a bit more to fill me in. How common is it to have many players that aren't in the NHL playing in a lot of these tournaments? Like in these absolute, like the Olympics, like the absolute best on best.
I don't think it affects Canada. Doesn't affect the United States.
Unless
Probably
there's junior players
doesn't.
that are that good, I don't think
Yeah,
it would affect
and
them. And
and there isn't.
that would take a
There isn't.
special freaking player.
You'd also have to be like you'd have to be yeah.
Like exceptional
Um
status, like
it
blowing up
doesn't
WHL.
probably doesn't even affect Sweden or Finland. But I think like Russia maybe. I think if you're talking about yeah, and then some of the other teams like Czechia, Germany, there might be some guys playing overseas that I think would be on the team. Um
Right.
so but again, I think when they kind of come around to like doing the World Cup, I think they'll probably again, they'll have their Canada. And I think a big part of it too is they want to have it where when they're playing I think as much as they can, they want to have players representing their country,
Yeah.
right? Like if you're playing like you want to be wearing represent your country, right? As opposed to kind of the way you mentioned, like if you're dry saddle, you don't want to just be wearing some generic made up logo and be like, this is our team. So you'll probably still have your Canada, your US, Sweden, Finland, Russia. I think Czech is at a point now they can just have a team by themselves. Um, but then you get in the parts like Germany, like you've got some great players, but then
Do they even have
how
many people do you need for a roster?
from the NHL?
20.
Can you fill out a full team? I think
I
so,
I don't
but I
think you
don't know
can.
for sure.
Like, how many players do you need for a team? 18? 18
Yeah,
and then
but
like
you need an
3
extra.
extras?
Yeah,
But do they even have 18, like, not even
that's
good,
like
not
off
even
the top of my
quality,
head.
just
I'm not too sure.
German players? Like,
So that's what I'm thinking, right? So like the World Cup, they'll probably have like kind of the big main ones, but then you'll probably have to do a Team Europe again, where you throw Slovakia, um, Slovenia, Germany. Kind of having to throw all those teams in mix. Denmark for Ehlers. So, and then they might do the Team North America again. I know a lot of people liked it. They might go away from that. I don't know, but I like the potential of having the NHL kind of putting this on. I think
yeah.
there's a lot of potential through that.
It if the NHL players are allowed to go back to the Olympics, the actual Olympics, I I would really like to see them just get everyone included, whether that's a team North America, whether that's a team Canada, US, and then, North rest of the world, South rest of the world, East West rest of the world, whatever. I would prefer that as long as the guys do on those Olympic years get to represent their country because I do think that's pretty important.
But
I just
it's the
looked at
World Cup of hockey. It's the same as the World Cup of soccer, right? That's kind of what they're trying to go for. They're trying to have where you get another chance to represent your country type of thing.
I guess, but then you have all those guys not representing their countries because they can't. Germany
That's what
could
I'm saying. That's
could
why I'm saying I
absolutely
think
not
like
put together a team. By the
that's why
way,
I'm
they have
saying I
one
think
goalie,
for the
one
World Cup they're gonna do Germany, Denmark, Slovakia, Slovenia. They're gonna throw all them together again, and they're
yeah,
gonna make that Europe team. But
yeah,
what I'm saying is I think the NHL wants to try and minimize that as much as possible, so you don't have a bunch of those kind of teams. Like if they can just have one team like that, they'd much rather do that than have 4 or 5. You know what I mean?
and that's yeah. I see the point there. I guess I just feel the opposite. I feel like if one team's doing it, might as well have a bunch of them do it and mix it up. And
But
yeah,
why? If you have enough, like, and you can't even make the argument that Europe sucks, that it wouldn't be a good team because they were in the
no,
finals. They played Canada in the finals of the 2016 World Cup.
no,
Like if
it's
you took a
just
team, you put all of Canada's and US's best players, there's not another countries you can stop together that would beat them.
no, and that's why I don't think you
You
do
put
a
together
team
some
North
good
America.
teams, but you couldn't. There wouldn't be anything that could match that.
And if you do a team North America, like look how good Team Canada is, look how good Team US is. Now you have to take half those players. Like it's
No, so Team North America that's what they call it, but that would be like the 23 and unders. So that's like just taking kind of all the young Canadians and Americans and putting them together.
I see.
So back in like 2016,
But
that had like McDavid, Marner, a bunch of those guys basically.
and then they had like a North American team that was 24 and older.
Nope. Then they just had Canada and the US.
Oh, okay. I did not know about that. All right,
Yeah. So and that's why people loved it, because they're like, all right, we get to watch all of Canada's best players,
that's
all
pretty
of
cool
the
to
US
put the
best
young
players,
guys.
but we get to watch all of the best young and up and coming players all kind of together, that come out of North America. Which I think the way I would do it is, I would do for the World Cup at least. You can have Canada, US, Sweden, Finland, Russia. You can do Czechia. What's that? That's 6 right there. You could do the Team Europe again, which could be, Germany, Slovakia, all those ones. But then if you do like a 23 and under team, give them a different name. But I would do like across the world.
Just do
Just
everybody.
do the top 23 and under across the globe.
Yeah, like
Instead,
that.
I'd love to see the best, Canadian young
Absolutely.
players, Americans, but then, you got some young dominant Swedes coming up and whatnot. Like, throw them all together. I would love to see. I think that would make it more exciting for me.
Yeah, that's a really good call as well. Yeah, but it'll be really interesting when that finally gets started up, and it's nice to hear this far in advance that they are planning to get the World Cup of hockey back and get us
Yeah,
consistently seeing this best on best, because everyone's missed it for so long. Most of all the players,
yeah,
um,
and the
just
opportunity
be
to have it every second year is exciting.
yeah, just to get it out there, because I did start saying it before, but there is, as far as German players go in the NHL right now, there is 5 forwards, 1 defenseman, and 1 goalie.
Who's the
Draisaitl,
goalie? Grubauer.
Grubauer,
Oh, you'd get
yeah,
dominated if you're throwing Grubauer in the pipes for that.
yeah.
You're done.
Grubauer, Lucas Reichel, Nico Sturm, John Paterka, Mo Seider, Tim Stutzel, and Leon Draisaitl. I
See, so
mean,
like that's some good players in the mix there, though.
considering you only got 7 guys, I mean,
Like
you know,
that's
he's not great anymore, but Vezina finalist, Hart Trophy winner. Uh, is that 2 Calders? Stutzel and Seider? Did they both win the Calder?
yeah,
Like, that's
Stanley Cup champ and Nico Sturm.
yeah, considering there's only 7 options there, that ain't half bad. Like, their
Yeah,
lowest scoring guy over his career, obviously excluding the goalie, 46 points in 141 games. Like,
yeah,
not bad at all.
and that's a young player who's only going to probably get better. I'm assuming that's Paterka,
That's Lucas Reichel.
Luke Circa. Oh,
No, Paterka's got 117 points already. He's got
oh
51
shit.
goals.
Okay, Lucas Reichel actually.
He's
I don't know where
2002
he's
birthday.
projecting with Chicago. Might have to get out of Chicago if he wants to elevate those numbers. But
That
again,
goes for a
like
lot of people.
some good players there. You talk about like Slovakia and Slovenia, like they got some good players, but again, they don't really have enough to put together a full team. So just slap them all together. Denmark, I think you might only have Nikolai Ehlers actually. There might be a couple others, but I probably not big enough names.
Yeah, it's definitely not
Ehlers kind
that
of the only
many.
one I can think of off the top of my head. So yeah, throw them all together, and I mean, hell, they almost beat Canada in 2016. So
Run it
they've
back.
only gotten better since then.
Yeah, and hell, I mean, Canada, like we were saying, they don't have that Olympic level goaltending.
Yeah,
So,
yep.
there
Maybe
are
with Logan Thompson in a couple years, if keeps going.
yeah,
Might have to be the guy moving forward for the
uh
next little bit.
Denmark has 6 active NHL players. Uh no defensemen, 2 goalies, and 4 forwards. We got Freddie Anderson
Oh,
for
Freddie Anderson, yeah.
goalie, and Mads Sogard. And then for players, we got Nikolai Ehlers, Lars Eller, Oliver Bjorkstrand, and Jonas Ronjberg.
Oh, Ronsberg, good player. Actually, yeah. No, so I mean, again, you actually you do have some good forwards in there, but again, like we said, not really enough for a team. So you join together with a couple others, and you could put together a nice squad.
Yeah. Um, I
I'm
think
just I like the idea of every 2 years, and then the best part is you get double HF, but then you get like just a kind of one done by the NHL. You're not kind of getting a copy and paste type of thing every 2 years. You're getting kind of the same thing, but a little bit different because I think the NHL
well,
would put a little unique spin on it or something.
so they would be using NHL ice, NHL rules, like that's
NHL
different from
refs, they would
yeah,
just
like
bring their own refs. Like, hey, you're our
you,
boys.
yeah, the rules like you'd be able to hit, to an NHL level probably more so than you did under the double IHF or the Olympic Committee.
Can
So
drop star players drop the mitts.
yeah, yeah, without getting like completely ejected. So it would be really interesting to see, and yeah, I guess we'll see who makes the team by then. It's not even that far to the future, but it's so hard to predict with these.
Yeah.
Um, but I think we've squeezed all the juice we can out of that until we get more news. But Burundi, I think all we have left, at least all that I know we have left, is the trade, which
The
really is
trade. Yeah.
the biggest trade that since which trade is this the biggest?
For
Like
me personally, it still is the biggest in season trade since the Joe Thornton to San Jose one.
yeah, like
Honorable mentions being St. Louis to the Rangers, but we kind of knew that one was coming. And St. Louis was a bit older, kind of near the back end, and the Jack Eichel one again. We knew he was going to get traded, and we knew there was like some injury concerns with Eichel, but like in terms of a big deal that kind of just like boom, here it is. Like
yeah,
yeah, going back to the Jumbo Joe trade, like this is for an in season trade is yeah.
yeah,
It's hard to get much bigger than this.
yeah. Do you want to go over this, or do you want me to? Do you have anywhere you want to start? I guess because we got three teams to talk about. For those who haven't heard, this is a three-team trade. All teams starting with C as well. We got Carolina, Colorado, and Chicago.
Yeah, so I can kind of just break down what the trade is, and then we can kind of go through team by team and give our thoughts about them.
Yeah, I have a
Um,
feeling one of the teams is going to be quicker than the other two.
oh, by far. We'll start off with the Carolina Hurricanes, the team that got the big prize in this trade. The Carolina Hurricanes received forward Mikko Rantanen from the Colorado Avalanche, along with Taylor Hall from the Chicago Blackhawks. The Colorado Avalanche, in exchange for trading away Mikko Rantanen, got forward Martin Necas and Jack Drury from the Carolina Hurricanes, along with a second round pick in 2025 and a fourth round pick in 2026. No conditions on those. The Chicago Blackhawks, in exchange for trading away Taylor Hall and retaining half of Rantanen's salary, they got a 2025 third round pick. But funny enough, it is their own third round pick they are getting back. So depending on what way you want to view it, third round pick or a very late second round pick, Chicago is getting back in exchange for their troubles of getting rid of Taylor Hall and retaining half of Rantanen's salary.
Yeah,
That's
what a trade! Like out of nowhere. Like we knew Rantanen had not extended yet, and we knew that as I think like 2 or 3 days before the trade actually happened, we were still seeing articles showing up online of being like the Avs are still in talks with them. They're still talking extension. Like they were they were very actively trying to extend him, and all of a sudden, boom, this bombshell drops, and uh yeah, I guess let's break this down team by team and what we like, what we don't like, and let's start where it's easy and begin with Chicago. Um, so they got their own third round pick back in 2025 and retained Rantanen's salary. It is also important to note they did move out Taylor Hall, which losing a decent player, but also frees up 6 million in cap space. Which so overall salary change, I believe they saved 1.2 mil in this deal while getting that third rounder. Brundi, what are your thoughts for Chicago on this?
so. I mean, I was kind of underwhelmed with only getting a third round pick back, considering they did retain half of Ranton's salary and they traded Taylor Hall, who, it sounded like that's what they're going to be able to get for Taylor Hall, straight up trading him with a third round pick. Apparently, there wasn't many teams interested in Taylor Hall. There really wasn't teams willing to give up much for him. I think a big part of that just due to he is making $6 million right now. Has had some trouble staying healthy. I think can still be a serviceable player, but obviously not as good as he used to be. So you know what? At the end of the day, I don't hate it for Chicago. Like, I'm not sitting here being like, man, this deal hurts them. Like, would I liked if they got a second round pick, considering they gave away what I think can still be a decent player and retaining half of Ranton's salary? Like, San Jose couldn't. Calgary might have, but like, there's not many teams that were in a position that they could do this. So like, Chicago probably could have stiff armed their way to a second round pick, or even getting, you get a third from Carolina, which is Chicago's pick, and you get a third from Colorado or something. Yeah. Right? Like, just again, they could have got more, but at the end of the day, this trade doesn't hurt them. So, I mean, good on them. They wanted to be involved, I guess, and kind of have their name in the headline of a big trade. But yeah, I don't love it for them, but I don't hate it. You got to pick back, so.
Yeah,
and apparently
it's
Taylor
just very
Hall really wasn't going to be able to get moved. So,
I think Chicago, for my money, probably did the worst out of the three teams in this trade.
Oh, obviously, yeah.
That being said, yeah, it doesn't make them worse. It's just one of those situations where, a potential value. You could have had more for it, but yeah.
But you know what I will say?
It doesn't hurt them.
The thing people aren't talking about enough, though, is like, again, I hate beating up on Taylor Hall. Not as good of a player as he used to be. He still made Chicago better. And if this was the only way you could get rid of if this was the only way you could get rid of Taylor Hall without having to retain money on him. Obviously you did retain on Rantanen, but like, if you retained on Rantanen and Hall, well, now you only have one retention spot. So it helps you keep a retention spot open that you can maybe add another pick or two at the deadline, and it makes your team worse, which is huge for Chicago this year, as they're obviously fighting to have the best chance at number one overall pick. So if it ends up helping them net the first overall pick, well, fuck, what more can you ask for then? Then it's a home run for them, right? So
yeah,
kind of one of those ones where remains to be seen, but for Chicago, because what do they have? Was that only one retention spot they've got used now here?
That is two. They have two retained now. They are still retaining on Jake McCabe for the rest of this year.
Okay, so both of those will be up then. So, you know what? I like a little bit more for Chicago than actually. You retain on Rantanen, but you didn't have to on Taylor Hall, but now you got to make sure that you use up that third one at the trade deadline when a rental player is getting moved. Just let everybody know, hey, we've got one retention spot. We'll even take a 7th round pick if need be. Yeah, I think they definitely got to use up that spot now, considering they managed to trade Hall and not retain.
And I think that's the whole point, because that's why they retained on Rantanen instead of Hall, because they both only have one. They both went to the same team in Carolina, and they both only have 1 year left. The difference is, if they retain on Rantanen, they're actually retaining less money. They saved 1.2 mil on their cap, so they have more cap space, which they don't need right now, but they have more cap space to take on bad contracts, retain on other guys. So it does help them in that way. It indirectly kind of reminds me a little bit, almost like the Barclay Goodrow situation we saw with San Jose, where any other team to take this on would have cost those teams making the deal more. But San Jose, same as Chicago here, they're not looking at the market. They're not looking at what other teams need. They're looking at what it happens to them. And in the end, they thought, forget about it. Are we better with Goodrow versus without him? Does that help? And they came to the
I can make an argument for both. I can make an argument for both sides.
Oh, absolutely. But Big Money Mike clearly came to the decision that it makes us better. And here, other teams, people are saying they could have got a first, they could have got a second, they could have got whatever. This prospect. At the end of the day, the Chicago Blackhawks are better now than they were a week ago, in a better
Yeah,
spot.
yeah, exactly. And at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to for Chicago is, when it's all said and done at the end of the regular season, if you're the bottom team, if you're number 32, as crazy as it sounds, mission accomplished. Like that's what you're going for right now.
Yeah.
And joining in to help facilitate this deal and move out Taylor Hall does exactly that for you. So I'll give Chicago. I'll give them a nice low. I'll give them a C for Chicago.
I think that's perfect. Yeah.
I would have liked if they got
worked.
more back, but at the end of the day, it does make them a worse team, which is what they should be doing. So
yeah, worse now, so they can be better long term. We've seen it a million times with teams rebuilding.
Take your pick. Carolina, Colorado. Who are we breaking down next here?
I've got a lot of thoughts on the other one, so I'm going to go with Colorado first.
Colorado first. Quick reminder, Colorado received forward Martin Necas and Jack Drury, along with a second-round pick in 2025 and a fourth-round pick in 2026.
So, obviously, this entire trade happens because Colorado could not extend Mikko Rantanen. They were in talks, sounds like almost all year, trying to get it done. And at the very least, over the past 2 months, they were pretty actively trying to get it done. It's all been reported and rumored that Rantanen wanted $14 million. He saw Draisaitl's extension and said, "I want that." He has come out since the trade happened and said that he was willing to take less than market value, and that's why the trade shocked him so much.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's true. I don't know if he's telling the whole story there.
From what I've seen, from what I was reading today, it sounds like it's pretty much all but confirmed that Colorado's final offer to Rantanen and his agent was 8 years at $11.75 million per year. Which it's a good chunk of change. It's a lot of money. Like if I'm Rantanen and you're with your boys and you really want to be an Av for life, why wouldn't you just sign that? Like,
so yeah, because
it's good money. You get to play with the second best player in the world, the best defenseman in the world. You get to just go chasing after more cups with them for basically the rest of your career. Like, I get he probably could get more from the Hurricanes or teams at free agency, but if you
and
really were
I assume
so upset by the trade and you wanted to be an Av for life, should have just signed that deal. In my opinion, I should have just signed it.
You can kind of meet in the middle to tell where offers kind of realistically were if you can assume people are telling the truth. So, first of all, Rantanen says that he was willing to take less than market value to stay. Okay, what does that mean? Does he think he's a $16 million player and he was willing to take 14? Like, that unfortunately does not tell us a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But he did say that, take it with a grain of salt. We don't know for a fact that he told the Avs this. He said he was willing to take less than Nathan MacKinnon. So he's willing. So Nathan MacKinnon is making 12.6 mil per year. So he was willing to
I'll take 12.5.
So he's saying I will take 12.5 at least, or potentially less. The Avalanche have said that they offered him 8 years at 11.75. If
just meet in the middle, then
but that's too close. That is way too close of a number for me to be able to believe that both sides are telling the truth. I don't know if one's lying or both. It's very possible it's both because neither's. Unless they reveal there's a video of one of several, I'm sure, meetings with the agent, we'll never know. But 12.5, and that's $750,000 per year difference. That's not a whole lot in the grand scheme of the amount we're talking. And that's not an amount for it to not happen over neither side will bud. You're telling me that Rantanen goes, okay, fine, I'll take 12 for 8 years. And Avs go, oh, an extra 250K. We can't do it. No, you're gone.
Yeah.
Like, there's no way that happened. And like, if it's that much lower, like, was Rantanen really like that? I can't sign for that. I
So
don't.
there's
That
two
doesn't seem
things.
likely either.
There's
So
two things. It's either in this time now, we're not getting the truth from Rantanen and from the Avalanche, or all the rumors we were hearing over the offseason, in the late part of the offseason, the beginning of the season, those were all false. Because back then it was reported that Colorado and Rantanen were like moments away. They were right there ready to sign an 8-year, $12.5 million extension until Draisaitl signed his 14. And that's what put a stop to their negotiations, and they had to go back to the drawing board. Well, if they were set before on signing the 8 years at 12 and up, why didn't you just do it now? Or were
Yeah.
those reports from earlier, were those all false? Like, it's so hard to tell, especially when you've now got stories coming from two different sides, not necessarily two stories from guys kind of on the same side.
yeah, and you've got
But
all
yeah,
kinds
like
of
it's
other guys
crazy that they
dropping
couldn't
in
get
their
a
2
deal done.
cents. Like, McKinnon said that, obviously he's not in the room. He's not talking about the extension, but he did go to Avs management and say, hey, I'm not going to be upset if Rantanen makes more than me. He said if he makes more, then he makes more. So
But I think the Avs kind of knew, like,
I think the Avs know that they can't handcuff themselves with a 12.6, a 13, and the biggest reason that they moved on from him and didn't give him this money is Cale Makar is a UFA in 3 years. That means in 2 years,
exactly.
which is 1.5 seasons right now, you can extend him. And
Yeah. And he's
Rantanen,
going to get paid.
we are 99% sure they were going to, at least I was, that they were going to extend Rantanen. I'm 100% sure that they're going to at least do everything in their power to
To get
retain
Cale Makar signed. Yeah.
Makar and extend him for 8 years. And they might not, but it's not before they have moved heaven and earth to make it happen. So, if Rantanen was like, "Yep, I want 14." Okay, so you're paying 12.6 for McKinnon. They're playing 14 for Rantanen. Well, fuck. I'm sorry, Rantanen. Makar's better. Like,
One, and who
he
knows what
might be
Makar's
he
because
might
Makar's
be
going to
better than
reset.
McKinnon.
Yeah, Makar's going to reset the defenseman market with his deal.
Yeah, he's
The
gonna
same way that
break it wide open.
McDavid's gonna in a little bit here.
Yeah, like Makar could probably get 8 years at. I mean, the cap's also going up, and it's in 2 years. Like, he could get like.
Makar could ask for 16, and the Avs would be like, "All right."
Well, I was
Avs
gonna
would be
say
like,
that
"Fuck
number,
Fleece job
and I'm
by
wondering
us.
if
Let's
that's
do
too
it."
low now. Like, he might get 18.
Exactly. Yeah.
The cap might go up like as much as 9 mil this year. It might go up another 9 next year. Like, the top guys, like, who knows how long it is before we're seeing 17, 18 contracts. So
Yeah.
you gotta
And I
take
mean,
all that into account when talking
yeah.
about it. And they just, at the end of the day, they felt they couldn't afford Rantanen's services. And Rantanen played hardball throughout the summer, throughout the season, up until last week when the trade happened, and wasn't willing to sign for whatever the number is. Maybe he did get lowballed like crazy. We don't know. But at the end, the two sides couldn't agree, and the Avs decided not to. They weren't enough of a contender this year to risk it on winning a cup. They wanted to get assets back, and they did get some good assets back that we can talk about here because Marty
I just got one more thing to quickly
Sure.
about that before we get
Go
into the
for it.
turn. So first of all, like, obviously, it kind of sucks for Colorado because obviously you are, a big cup contender. You've still got great pieces and guys like McKinnon, Makar, but you had to trade Rantanen. If you couldn't agree to a deal, it's not worth going on a playoff run with Rantanen and then losing him for nothing. You have to get, assets back, even if the return is underwhelming. And I do think it's a little bit underwhelming for a player like Rantanen. You had to get something back. So
yeah,
Colorado could have maybe waited longer, but obviously they were very high on Martin Necas, and the way things were kind of looking, there's a very good chance that Martin Necas wasn't going to be available and wasn't going to be a member of the Carolina Hurricanes if they waited an extra week potentially.
Yeah.
Secondly, the last thing before getting the return, it's crazy to think that the Avs won the cup in 2022. Can't remember who they beat in the finals. That's irrelevant. Just
That's a mystery to me.
but they won the cup. Vibes were high. They had one of the most dominant lines ever in Mikko Rantanen, Nathan McKinnon, Gabriel Landeskog. Those three never played a game together again after winning the cup. That cup winning game was the last time that those three ever played together again. And now they won't get the opportunity to, even if Landeskog comes back. Obviously Rantanen has been moved out, so kind of crazy how quickly things can kind of change there for Colorado. But yes, we can dive into the return they got here.
Yeah, so obviously sucks losing Rantanen. They did not want to do that, but I say it all the time in regards to these blockbuster trades where you're trading an elite player. I'm pretty sure I've said it at least once in the last week regarding Miller and Pettersson. If you're trading an elite player, at bare minimum, even if he's not quite on the same level, you do want an elite player back. And I think that's something that they did succeed in getting in Marty Necas. With the Hurricanes this year, he had 55 points in 49 games.
What's their leading scorer?
He was their leading. Yeah, the Hurricanes are now one of the top betting favorites for the Cup, and they just traded away their top scorer, which is, who knows the last time we saw something like that happen. He's got a bit of a history of scoring too, 71 and 82, 53 and 77, not as nice, but 55 and 49. He's on pace for, 90, 95 points on the year so far. He's a centerman that, so you can have that 1-2, or you can put him on the wing and have him play with McKinnon. And he has 2 years left at $6.5 million. So as soon as this summer, they will be able to talk about an extension with him. And, Marty Necas, is he Rantanen? No, but you already got some top tier guys in Makar and McKinnon. Do you really need 3 guys in that super high tier, or do you just need 2 and the next guy can be just really damn good? Like Marty Necas what do you think he resigns for? If he signs for 8 years or 7 years, what is that? 8 mil?
8.5 to 9.5, somewhere in there. I think honestly, he might take an 8-year, 8.5.
Yeah, anywhere between Colorado, 8 and 9.
You do that all day.
Yeah, and that,
especially when you have the versatility, which is a big thing that kind of similar to what Rantanen had. You can put Necas on the top line with McKinnon, or you can roll McKinnon still as your first line center, have Necas as your second line center, and that's great. Like, having that versatility is so huge, as opposed to being like, we're signing you, but like I'll say Marner because he's a guy that's up for contract extension. He's a winger, so you can only put him on the wing. At least with Necas, you have that flexibility, and you can kind of move him throughout your lineup, wherever fits best or wherever you need maybe some extra help.
Yeah, it just makes a lot of sense salary cap wise for them to not have those 3 guys taking up that much. Like, there's a lot of people saying, why didn't they just pay Rantanen? Well, because we all sit here for 365 days a year clowning on the Leafs for paying 3 or 4 guys all their money. Like, they're avoiding doing exactly that. And Marty Necas is still a damn good player, but even if you go on the high end, say he makes 9.5, that's still $4.5 million less than 14 million. $4.5 million can get you a pretty good player. That's a whole nother Josh Manson. You could clone him and give him a contract.
So yeah, exactly.
Opens them up to signing other guys.
I saw an Avs fan on Twitter broke it down perfectly. Speaking for Avs fans, obviously, because most other fans of teams don't give a shit, but He said like um, you can understand this deal. It doesn't mean you have to be happy about it, type of thing. Like you can be upset that you
Oh,
traded away
yeah.
Rant. You can be upset the return wasn't great, but you had to do it. And in the long run, it could end up being a great deal for Colorado because clearly they weren't going to get a deal done with Rantanen. If you can get Natchez brought back on a 8-year, 8.5, first of all, that would be a nice deal. You can put that extra money elsewhere, and straight up, you'll know. But you have the potential of knowing in 5 months if you won the deal, or 6 months if Rantanen goes to free agency. All right, well now you definitely won the deal.
Yeah.
And maybe unless Carolina goes on to win the cup. If Carolina wins the cup and Rantanen leaves, I think Carolina still wins
Yeah.
because
But
Rantanen probably put him over the edge. But at the
even
end of
then,
the day,
that doesn't mean you lost. Just because Carolina wins doesn't mean that they lost if this helps
that is
them.
very true. That's a very
Yeah.
good point. Yeah.
Like, even if Rantanen wins the Conn Smythe with the Hurricanes, if he signs for 15 mil somewhere, I think the Avs win because they don't have $15 million on the books combined with 12.6 and whatever Makar's going to make. Like, unfortunately, like, would it be a bad deal for Rantanen? No, he's a really good player, but it's the same thing we say with Toronto. Mitch Marner, whatever he makes, it's probably still going to be fair deal, but not for the Leafs in their situation because they need that cap space because they have other guys making all that money.
Yeah. Yeah, like I think Natchez is a good addition for the Avs. Like again, he's no Rantanen, but
Gary's skating team.
he helps you quite a bit still having him. He is young. You're gonna have the opportunity to get him locked in on a contract and have him part of your core. Jack Drew, I mean, there's still potential for him, but it's kind of looking like a bottom six defensive kind of energy forward. And putting with the right guys on the Avs maybe could help him elevate his game. Still kind of remains to be seen. But again, like if you're, Colorado, you're getting a little bit of depth with him, which is kind of what they're desperate for. The second and fourth, I mean, you're getting picks, but probably would have liked to maybe get a first. I can't believe you didn't manage to get a first where you're trading away Rantanen. I mean, you did get Natchez, but
Yeah, you would have
I
liked to get more, but I don't hate the return. And the main thing they were getting, besides Natchez, obviously, is that cap space, not
yeah,
having to fill it all up. And
yeah,
now that all that stuff's been given up by Carolina, they unless they win the cup, they have to bring back Rantanen. Like
yeah. Yeah, you
they
got to find a way to extend him, and it is worth noting that there is no extension in place for
they have
Rantanen
started
as of
talking with him, but
oh,
obviously
they have,
nothing's.
okay.
Yeah,
I, I
they
didn't
hadn't
know
when
that.
the trade happened, but
Yeah,
1 or 2 days after he got there, they started chatting about it. We'll see how he plays there in his first few games and how that goes. But
yep. I mean, for Colorado, like I'll give them a B.
yeah,
Again, because I think you probably could have gotten more for Rantanen, but I do like that they weren't afraid to pull the trigger on a deal to move him because I think there's lots of teams in this league that would have been like, hey, we're gonna we're gonna go for it this year. Like Toronto could be a team where you don't trade Marner, you try and go on a cup run this year, you don't win, and then you lose them to free agency. Like that's a possibility. So for
yeah,
Colorado to not be afraid to pull the trigger, you get a little bit of depth back injury, which you need. You get some draft picks, not great, but hey, you know what? Picks are picks, and you get Martin Natchez, who again isn't Rantanen, but he can still be easily a point per game player on the Avs, and you also do still have that versatility. You can put him on the wing with McKinnon, or he can be your second line center that you've kind of desperately been looking for since Nazem Kadri left. So
they might have the best 3-on-3 overtime lineup in the league now. Like, not saying they didn't with Rantanen necessarily, but one of the things Marty Natchez is very known for is his skating is absolutely elite. It is Rantanen general skills level elite as terms as
yeah,
skating go. And being able to roll Nathan McKinnon, Marty Natchez, and Kale McCarr, the with all that open ice, they are gonna skate around people like crazy. Like, that is the last team you want to go into overtime against. Like that.
Yeah,
they'll
that's a
just
good part.
they'll just tear you to shreds out there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, like,
that'll
again,
at least be very fun to watch for Avs fans. And you know
yeah.
what? It's you got stuff back. You know, like you said, the Avs fans were saying on Twitter about you don't have to like it, but you can see what he was doing. That's exactly how I felt when we didn't resign Stamkos. I understand why we got better 5-on-5 with Gensel, but you know, doesn't exactly mean I have to like it. I would have preferred Stamkos stay, right? Like I the GM's job is not to do what everyone wants based on vibes. It's to help his team win. And that's what the Avalanche did here.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, I completely agree. It's again, if you're outside, you're not thrilled, but I see the long term vision, and I'm excited to see how it works for Colorado.
Yeah, it's gonna free up a good amount of cap space. Probably hoping that they could get Alexander Nikishin, but Marty Necas, if he's going one way, I doubt you're getting both of those guys, unless
I would have liked the
unless the
first for Colorado
if the
instead of the
Avs
second and fourth,
retained,
but
like if the Avs retained half and then the Blackhawks retained the other half, or like
but
half,
still don't
which
think
would
it
be
would
a
have been enough
quarter,
to
probably
get a top
not.
player and their top prospect. Probably not. You would have had to pick one or the other, and
But
I think
if
Colorado made the
they
right
if they
choice.
do
You
that,
need help up front.
that would be a really cheap Mikko Rantanen on their team. They'd probably still be able to go kick tires on a JT Miller if
You
if
could, but then you'd be confirming that like you're not resigning Rantanen though, right?
oh,
Like,
absolutely. It would be an all-in move this season.
yeah,
It would be a cup or bust situation for sure. But it would have
yeah.
been wild to see all of a sudden Colorado or Carolina puts together this absolute super team
So,
for one
yeah.
season only. We've got
Speaking
all
of
these
the
great
Hurricanes
rentals.
and Ranton, let's chat about them. The Carolina Hurricanes obviously receiving Mikko Rantanen, and they did get Taylor Hall. I'll quickly say what I got saying Taylor Hall, and then you can dive in on Rantanen. Taylor Hall again, probably a third line winger. I think at this point now,
Uh, 24
skating
points
isn't
in 46
quite.
games. So half a point per game on a bad Blackhawks team. He'll probably score more than half a point per game with Carolina. I don't know how he'll be
Maybe
defensively, but
depends the way you view it because he was playing top line minutes with Chicago as opposed to he's probably not going to get as much ice time with Carolina,
hmm,
and
fair.
might get some second power play time though. So probably honestly stay around the same. I think being a top player in all situations on a bad team is probably about the same as being a third liner on a cup contending team. But I think people are kind of overlooking him, being like, "Oh, he was just kind of a throw-in," and people are focused on Ranton. I think Taylor Hall is going to be a great addition
Yeah.
to Carolina's middle six, whether he's second, third line. I think he can still be an effective player. And again, this is a guy that we haven't really seen in the playoffs much. So I wouldn't be surprised if Taylor Hall scores some big goals for Carolina in the playoffs.
Yeah. Like they honestly, like, yeah, obviously Rantanen is the crown jewel of this, but Hall is low key a really nice pickup to also get when Carolina or Chicago probably assumed when they got that call that they were only there to retain salary. They probably had no clue that a team was coming in to pick up Hall as well. And
Yeah.
like that's real nice for them to just get that on top of it. And they it's insane because the Hurricanes, I believe they still got a little bit of cap room. Like
Hmm. Yeah.
they're not even necessarily done. So right now, everything included, they're 125,000 under the cap, but they have 3.175 on LTIR. That being Jesper Fast and Tyson Jost. So they still have a little bit of wiggle room there with those guys. And Freddie Anderson currently on IR. I don't know if they're gonna just keep him until he expires here, but in the next he's not dying. His contract will expire in the off season. But that would free up 3.4 if they decide to move him because he's been injured a lot, currently on IR with a knee injury. Kochetkov seems like their guy right now. Like this team is too good to hinge on Anderson's health. So it'll be very interesting to see what other moves on top of this absolute blockbuster they make.
Yeah, like for Carolina, I mean, to be as good of a team as they already are, and bring Rantanen out and Taylor Hall into the mix, it is just incredible. Like that really kind of makes them, I think one of the top two teams in the East. They're you could easily say they're number one. And then the biggest thing is like, when will teams learn? Like, this is back-to-back years now where, because obviously Jake Gensel was the biggest name moved last year. No bigger name is going to get moved than Rantanen unless Mitch Marner gets traded. So back-to-back years, Carolina goes out and gets the biggest player. And in both those deals, you didn't have to give up a first-round pick for either one, and your top 4 prospects remain with you. Like the fact that you got Jake Gensel, who unfortunately did leave, playing, having a great year, and Mikko Rantanen, you keep your first-round picks and all your top 4 prospects. That's incredible. Like that is like, it's just next level wizardry going on.
This team looks so nasty on paper.
Like Carolina.
Like I was really hot on them maybe 3 years ago. And then after a while, it was like they keep making the playoffs. They keep looking dominant. They get shelled in whichever round it is, and they don't make the finals. Yeah. This team is different. Like they have so much going for them. They have so much depth. They have, those two. Their lineup looks fantastic, even without Jesper Fast and Tyson Jost, who are on LTIR right now. Both of those also, if they don't re-sign them, come off the books after this year. The cap goes up. They've got all these incredible young players coming up as well. They got Bradley Nadeau coming up. They got the defenseman that we were talking about earlier. His name is escaping me at the moment. Alexander Nikishin. So, like they
got another player just this past draft, Nikita Artemonov, 50th overall. He has 29 points in 44 KHL games.
KHL is a men's league. That's not juniors. That's the NHL too. So
yeah, over they have a lot of good young up and coming prospects. They do still have Scott Morrow, who's having a terrific year down in the AHL. I expect him to probably be a full timer next year.
They have so many of their current top guys as well, locked in at great value. Sebastian Aho at 9.75. You'd maybe want that a little lower, but that's not a bad deal. Svechnikov 5 years at 7.75. Seth Jarvis at 7.420. Nice.
That one's a great deal. That one's going to be such a nice deal.
For 8 years, he's only 22. You get him through his whole prime. The Kotkaniemi one's the only rough one, and that one's not even horrendous. At 6 years for 4.8. Like, that's not good, but all these other ones make it easily stomachable. Like, they've got Jordan Stahl, their captain, 3 more years at 2.9 mil. They got Will Carrier for 6 more years at only 2 mil. Slavin just extended. He's got 9 years left at 6.39. Like, other than the Kotkaniemi one, like, there is nothing bad to look at on this cap wages page. Like, this is absolutely nuts. And I don't even know how good Dmitry Orlov's doing for him this year, but he's a UFA at the end of the year. So if they don't like it, they can ship him. Brent Burns.
They'll probably resign him, but he's probably not going to get as much as he's making. Brent Burns, tough to say. He very well could play another 2-3 years. This could be the final year. Carolina could just let him walk, and he could go sign somewhere else if he wants to play another year or two. Like, that's if he does stay, though. Again, like he's gonna be getting less than what he's making now.
Yeah, he probably retires if they win the cup,
I
honestly.
think if they win the cup, I think he does. Yeah.
39 years old, win a cup. I mean, you
Yeah.
got nothing to prove.
Yeah, that's you've
Like,
got a Norris, you've got a cup, right off in the sunset, King.
they,
Carolina, I'm gonna give him an A. I do think if people are saying, "Oh, it's a rental." I think they keep Rantanen. They find a way to get him signed, especially if you go on a deep run. Even if you don't win the cup, if you go on a deep playoff run, he's going to see the potential there. I think he'll stay, and he gets to play with another fellow Finn in Sebastian Aho. So
I'm very curious to see what happens with Rantanen, because this team obviously does not like giving out money. They are not handing out. Nobody has double digit money on this team, and only one guy, that being Sebastian Aho, has more than 8 mil in a season on his contract. So,
a lot of money saved up to pay a big time guy.
but yeah, I'm wondering, like,
Because the thing is,
are
Rantanen's
they going
clearly
up?
the best
Are they
player
going
on
to
their
14?
team. Like
Like,
Rantanen's clearly the best player on their team. There's no
yeah,
you don't like again, you've got a lot of good players on that team, but you don't have anyone in that same tier as Mikko Rantanen.
no.
So, Rantanen can sign for like if he asks for 14, I mean, yeah. Like
I
he
mean,
can.
he can. I'm so curious what happens, because I can see it go either way. Nobody has to do anything. Like, nobody has anyone's cards. It's everyone's got their own power. That team
Yeah.
is so well structured with the cap, and they have such a good lineup around him. If he decides to walk, they didn't give up a ton for him, and they don't need him to win. He freaking helps. He's Mikko Rantanen, but they look pretty damn good without him as well. So it's not as bad as, Colorado not being able to have him, because he's one of their big three.
Mhm.
He would be the
It's a
best, but
tough
he
look for
wouldn't.
Carolina, though. If you go out and you get Jay Gensel, and then you get Mikko Rantanen, and you have zero, assuming Carolina doesn't win the cup, zero
Yeah,
cups, and both of them walk is
yeah.
kind of tough, because eventually
But
you're going to get to that point where if you want to get another big name next year, you you're going to have to this is where you're going to have to finally part with a big piece, whether that's a first round pick or one of your better prospects, because you don't
well,
really have the other pieces. So I'm not really saying what they should or shouldn't do. I'm more just saying, like, it's not a situation with Colorado where it's like, necessarily cap strapped and worrying about upcoming deals and already kind of having that
yeah.
market set with a Nathan McKinnon, right? Like, there's no one on the team that they're like, well, we're paying this guy this much, so we can only pay this much. He's like, dude, I'm ranting, and I'm the best player your organization has seen in a long time, right? So
Yeah. But
yeah, both teams are kind of going into it with kind of a little bit of their own leverage, and
It yeah, it's just I'm genuinely very excited to see what happens with them, because they don't have to bring them back. Like, the world's not going to crumble around the Hurricanes if they don't. But at the same time, Rantanen, you know, he probably wants to stay. It's probably a pretty damn good team. But at the same time, oh fuck, I might be able to get 15 mil a year on free agency. I can pick where I
that's the thing
go.
is, like, this is his
So
big time to cash in. So
yeah,
does he want to commit and settle down in Carolina, or does he want to test the waters? The only downside is if he goes to free agency, he can only get that 7-year
7 years,
deal,
right?
unless he tells Carolina, hey, I'm not re-signing.
Trade me
If
for
you
a
want to
third.
trade my rights at the draft and get something back, and if you know a team out there that I want to go to that will give me an 8-year deal, let's make it happen, type of thing.
Yeah, which is exactly what happened with them last year with Gensel. They traded for a third, like right before free agency.
Yeah.
They got a third from Tampa for him, and then we signed Gensel for 8 years instead of 7. So there,
So could
this team
definitely see
specifically
something
is
like that.
they're no stranger to that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm very interested to see how well he does in Carolina. So far he's only played one game. He didn't get a point in that game. He was a +1, but literally one game. I think it was the day after the trade.
Yeah. Wasn't even a full
Like,
24 hours.
Yeah.
since the deal. He was already suited up. I think he'll be fine. I do think Ranton is a great player. We had him in our top 10, I believe.
I'm almost certain we
If I'm
did.
not mistaken. I'm pretty sure we did. I think it was 8 or 9. Is he gonna probably put up the same amount of points as he did with Colorado? I don't think so. Again, it's like people are like, "Oh, Carolina's got lots of talent." Okay, but he's only playing on one line. It's not like he's getting to play with Aho, Jarvis, Svechnikov, like all these guys at once. Like he's playing on a line. He's probably going to be with Aho and Jarvis, Aho, Svechnikov. Like it's tough when you go from playing with McKinnon, Makar. Carolina's a good team. They don't really have that, so I think he's still going to put up great points. Like I think he's still going to be a terrific player. I just don't think it's going to be at the level probably that he had playing with Colorado. Just guys he had chemistry with, and again, best defenseman in the world and the second best player in the entire league.
Yeah,
But he's got a hell of a chance at winning a cup with Carolina. So better chance than I think he would have had if he was with the Avs. So
yeah, at least
no
for
disrespect to
this
the
year.
Avalanche, but
And we did. I just went and checked it. We did have Rantanen at number 9, the 9th best player in the league when we did our rankings at the beginning of this year. So, like, yeah, I mean that's just such a haul for Carolina. And I mean, you know what? Let's see. Where's the next highest guy on the list that's on Carolina?
I don't think we had anyone.
Aho
Maybe we
is
had Aho.
47.
47.
47. I don't think we had anyone else from that team on there. Yeah, so that's pretty nice. That's a pretty nice ad for them, even if it's only for the one run. But if it's only for the one playoff run, they gotta win.
And if you're like for Carolina, like that's nice to have, a GM and owner that wants to win, right? Like the biggest team we were talking about the deadline last year, the New York Rangers, who, despite being the President's Trophy winning team at the end of the year and the kind of one of the clear favorites at the deadline, was like, yeah, we could bring in a big name or two, some big players, but we don't want to move our first round pick, so we're going to kind of just sit patiently. It's like, I mean, they ran into Florida, who was an absolute wagon, but you kind of look at it and you're like, fuck, if you parted with your first round pick and a prospect and you brought in a good top 6 player or a top 4 defenseman or something, like maybe
that's a difference.
Put you over the hump. Like maybe you would have won the cup last year. So I like that Carolina's not afraid to. I mean, even nicer for them, they don't have to give up their first round picks or top prospects, but
yeah,
they're
they
not
still
afraid
have
to
that
go out
if
and
they
make.
want to go out.
They're not afraid to go out and make big moves when they're. I mean, I think their window's open for quite a bit, but like these are kind of the years where you want to be going all in. So, good on them for not being afraid to make moves and go all out to try and win a cup or two.
Are you ready to hear something absolutely disgusting here?
Did a trade just happen?
No, I'm just gonna read off the third line on the Hurricanes.
Okay.
So the third line on the Hurricanes currently, as it stands, is Jordan Martinook, Captain Jordan Stahl, and Seth Jarvis.
That's a great defensive third line.
What team
Seth
could
Jarvis
have
has a lot of
like
offense,
Seth
but
Jarvis on there? Like,
yeah,
they can
don't get me
score,
wrong.
they
At this
can
point,
defend. Like that.
Martinook and Jordan Stahl are third liners, but great third liners, some of the best in the league. Like in terms of being, the way that they can shut down other teams. Seth Jarvis on there, like wow.
Yeah, like just absolutely filthy on this team, like top to bottom.
They're a deep team.
The only thing that they could improve is their goaltending. And
it's like their goaltending's not even bad.
It's not even bad.
So inconsistent.
Yeah. I do think they need to either let the contract expire this offseason or move Freddie Anderson and try and get an upgrade. Hell, a Charlie Lindgren and Kochetkov as a tandem. That's not too bad. Saves a decent bit of money as well. Like, at the very least for a guy that, will play you more games because Freddie Anderson's injury history is just brutal at this point, unfortunately, and he just keeps going down.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah,
I'm giving them an A+ personally.
Yeah.
I think the Hurricanes just absolutely smashed this. They had so many good prospects and they all their picks, and they didn't have to give up any of them. They did give up Natchez, but you replaced him with Rantanen, and that's just a massive win.
That's an upgrade. And again, I think Jack Drury could be solid, but fourth line center, like you can easily go out and replace that. Hell, with how deep their system is, you probably got guys you can bring up that can easily fill that role. Like,
yeah,
if you
re-sign Jack Roslovic, like,
yeah,
for that role, great goal scorer. So
yeah, I don't think Roslovic wants to commit to being a fourth line center though.
Probably not, but Stahl can't play forever, I think.
He's still got a couple years in the tank at least. He's still locked in on his contract. But yeah, like this deal it just came out of nowhere. It's one of the craziest deals we've seen in a long time, not even just in terms of regular season, just a hockey trade in general. Kind of come out of nowhere. Like, all the rumors was kind of going on around like the numerous guys Buffalo's ready to ship out. JT Miller, Elias Pettersson. Definitely, we knew the possibility of a Rantanen trade was out there, but we didn't expect it to kind of just happen at the end of January and just come out of complete nowhere.
Yeah, it wasn't even
no
rumored
rumors or anything.
It wasn't even rumored for a few hours, even, let alone days.
Yeah, it was just
and then
until the trade happened. Yeah. So, Carolina A+, Colorado I'm giving them solid B, and Chicago C. They're just the little brother who wanted to go and join their big bros in playing out on the ODR, and they got the chance to, and they got a 3rd round pick for their trouble. So, good on them there. I believe that wraps up everything we got. I think we've kind of broken down all angles of this absolute blockbuster here.
Yeah, we've said all we can really about it. Now it's just let's see who signs, who extends where, and how guys perform for the rest of the year on their new teams.
Yeah, I'm just looking forward to it, and we'll obviously be keeping an eye on the Tony Deangelo situation with the Islanders and Mikko Rantanen with Carolina and how he does, and what if he signs a deal, if he locks in, or if he's planning to ride it out the rest of the year. That will do it for this episode. As always, we'll be back on Friday later this week, and I'm bringing it back for you. I'm going to bring, we did it before. Some people said they liked it. I know you enjoyed it, so I'll be bringing back the 2 real, 2 fake, where you got to identify the 2 real players and the 2 fake players. So
that was good.
We'll have that on Friday later this week. Again, if you want to talk hockey, you know where to do so. All the links are down in the description below across all platforms. Braden, you know what time it is. Give us your final thoughts here.
Cup favorites, Carolina Hurricanes. After this trade, they were already good, but they look like the team to beat right now. We'll see how they play with Rantanen.
Yeah, and actually, we didn't even say with Rantanen, if you re-signed Rantanen, you probably aren't able to give Mackenzie Blackwood the deal they did, so you kind of got to think about it. You want Rantanen, or you want Natchez and Mackenzie Blackwood? And when you kind of look at it that way, it makes even more sense for Colorado, as Mackenzie Blackwood is definitely a goalie that can not only carry them in games, but they could definitely win a cup with him. That'll wrap up everything this one. Once again, thank you everybody for tuning in. And as always, we'll see you guys out on the ice on Friday later this week.